922 AD. The frozen banks of the Volga River. A young woman stands on the deck of a burning ship, her body still warm. 6 men have just finished with her. An old crone they call the Angel of Death tightens a rope around her throat while stabbing her between the ribs again and again and again. Her final words? Not curses. Not prayers. She looks into the flames and whispers, "I see my master, waiting for me in the garden." This wasn't murder. This was honor. Welcome to Lost History, where the real Vikings weren't the heroes in movies. They were something far darker. Today, the hidden life of Viking women. The ones history tried to bury forever. Stick with me till the end, because what happened to her happened to thousands. And the truth will chill you to your soul. That girl's name is lost. But an Arab traveler named Ahmad ibn Fadlan saw everything in 922. He wrote it down, and what he described still haunts historians. When a Viking chieftain died, they asked his slave girls, "Who will die with him?" One always said yes. Why? Because refusal meant nothing. They were thralls' property. But if she volunteered, they treated her like a bride for 10 days. They washed her feet with their own hands. Gave her the strongest ale until she sang and laughed like it was her wedding day. Then came the worst part. She walked from tent to tent. Every man in the camp took her. And after each one, he would whisper, "Tell your lord I did this out of love for him." Love? On the final day they dragged her onto the ship. They gave her one last cup of something so strong she almost collapsed. The Angel of Death, an old woman with a dagger, waited inside the silk pavilion beside the dead chief. The girl hesitated. Someone grabbed her hair. 6 men held her down. The rope went around her neck. The dagger went in. Over and over. Until the screaming stopped. Her body was laid beside her master. The ship was set on fire. And the Vikings watched smiling. This was their idea of paradise. But how did a woman end up volunteering for that hell? That's where our real story begins. Most Viking women didn't start as slaves. They started as free farm girls until the longships came. The Vikings didn't just raid for gold. They raided for people. Especially young women and girls. One Arab writer said the Vikings prized the most beautiful of the slave girls above everything. Imagine you're 14. Your village is asleep. Then the dragon's-headed ships appear out of the fog. Your father is cut down in seconds. Your mother tries to hide you, but they find you both. You're stripped, chained, thrown into the hold with dozens of others. The journey across the North Sea is pure torture, freezing waves, sickness, the men above deck using you whenever they want. By the time you reach Norway or Iceland, you're no longer a person. You're a thrall. Property. Worth less than a cow. And the worst part? Many of these captured girls became mothers to the next generation of Vikings. DNA studies in Iceland today still show massive traces of Irish and Scottish women's blood. Their genes survived, their names did not. Not every woman was a thrall. Some were free. But freedom in Viking society came with invisible chains. While the men sailed off raiding for months, sometimes years, the women ran everything. They managed the farm, raised the children, wove the sails, brewed the ale. They even had legal rights no other European women had. They could own land, divorce their husbands, and get their dowry back. Sounds empowering, right? Here's the dark truth. If your husband died on a raid, you inherited everything, but you also inherited every enemy he made. And if you were a thrall wife or concubine, you had 0 rights. Your children could be sold. You could be sacrificed when your owner died. Archaeologists found graves where slave women were beheaded and thrown beside their masters, just like that girl on the Volga. Their bones show they ate worse food, worked harder, and died younger. One skeleton from Norway still had rope marks around her neck. She was 19. Some women found power in the darkness. They became Volvas seeresses who practiced seer, the forbidden magic. These women traveled from village to village. Kings paid them in gold and silver just to tell the future. They wore cloaks of black feathers, carried staffs that could ride the winds, and sang songs that made the dead speak. But power like that came at a price. Men were forbidden from practicing seer. It was considered urgy, unmanly, shameful. So the Volvas lived on the edge of society. Respected and feared. Many were accused of cursing crops or causing stillbirths when things went wrong. In the Oseberg ship burial, one of the richest Viking graves ever found, archaeologists discovered two women. One was old, around 70. The other younger. They were buried with a ritual staff, tapestries of gods, and 15 sacrificed horses. One of them, most historians now believe, was a Volva. A queen of magic. But here's the twist that still gives experts nightmares: the younger woman's collarbone was broken. Some say it happened before death. Others whisper she was sacrificed to follow her mistress into the afterlife. Even the most powerful women could still end up as offerings. You've seen the movies. Lager the Shieldmaidens fighting beside men like equals. The sagas love these stories. Freydis Eriksdottir, half-sister of Leif Erikson, supposedly grabbed a sword while pregnant, slapped it on her bare chest, and terrified the Native Americans in Vinland. But the real history is bloodier and lonelier. In 2017, DNA proved the famous Burka warrior grave, buried with sword, axe, and 2 horses, was a woman. She was high-ranking. She fought. But she's the exception, not the rule. Most Shieldmaidens in sagas were either legendary or desperate. When the men were away raiding, some women picked up weapons to defend the farm. Others fought because they had nothing left to lose. Freydis? In one version of the saga, she's a hero. In the other, she's a monster who murders her own pregnant companions in cold blood for greed. The truth? Viking society was still a man's world. Women who fought were celebrated in stories, but rarely in real life. The ones who tried usually paid with their lives. Viking marriage wasn't about love. It was about alliances and land. A free woman could divorce, but only if she had powerful brothers. Many didn't. Powerful men kept multiple wives and concubines. The sagas are full of jealous wives watching their husbands bring home younger, prettier slaves from raids. And the emotional darkness? You raise your sons knowing most will die at sea. You raise your daughters knowing they could be taken the same way you almost were. One woman, Aud the Deep-Minded, lost her entire family to shipwrecks and violence. She still crossed the Atlantic and built a new life in Iceland. But her story is rare. Most ended in silence. Every Viking woman's story ended the same way, in a grave that told more than any saga. In 834 AD, in a Norwegian field, they buried that magnificent Oseberg ship with 2 women and treasures worth a kingdom. Tapestries of gods. A wagon that could carry the dead. Animals slaughtered so they could serve in the afterlife. One woman was clearly high status. The other? Maybe her servant. Maybe her sacrifice. Their faces are gone. Their names erased. But their bones still whisper, "We were here. We suffered. We ruled. We died." And thousands more like them, the slave girls, the Volvas, the farm wives, were never given ships. Just a hole in the ground, or the flames of a funeral pyre. So why does this matter? Because the Vikings didn't just sail away. Their blood and their pain still runs through millions of us. The hidden life of Viking women wasn't about glory or equality. It was about survival in a world that used them, feared them, and sometimes burned them alive, all in the name of honor. The girl on the Volga didn't die in vain. Her story survived through an Arab traveler who couldn't stay silent. And now, through lost history, her voice is finally being heard. If this chilled you, if it made you angry, if it made you see Vikings differently, hit that like button. Subscribe for more forgotten darkness. Next time, we're going deeper. Because some histories were never meant to be found.